started recording or streaming. We are live. I got a little bandwidth monitor in the back to see how hard we can push that gigabit line that we got at the house.
Oh, we got the jibby bits.
The GB bits, yeah. Well,
Yeah, baby.
this is the first stream coming at you from the Kroll household, the better Kroll household. Um, Aaron and Matt, I think, are just taking a night for themselves, and I think they're rolling dice. They'll probably pop up here and chat in a little bit, but um, yeah, it looks like we have screens. Um, I don't know if we have audio. Hopefully, we have audio. Somebody will join and tell us that whether we have audio or not. Or when do you guys want to take your headset off and see whether
Yeah,
we have
audio seems to be working.
awesome. All right. So that was the major hurdle that I was concerned about is that we'd have audio issues. Ramming speed. I'm super quiet. Oh, of course I am. So let's go here and let's go here. And I can deafen myself. See if I can crank my audio up a little bit. I suppose this is just. Uh oh.
Oh, Bobby's getting hand signals.
Bobin way he's throwing gang signs in the background.
Yeah.
I got kids yelling at me in the background, not realizing I'm live and in color here.
Nice.
You gotta
Okay.
start chuck some of them Iron Winds minis at him. That'll get to be attention getter.
There we go.
He's got a lot of those. So.
I can't say anything. He's helping me paint, so we got a long
Oh,
way to go.
All right, well, folks, that'll be something I'll have to figure out as far as what my audio is. You'll just have to put up with me, I guess, tonight. I'll try and remember to speak up a little bit. Hopefully, that'll help. Um,
speak from the gallows, my son.
yeah, see, I got my Yeti is behind me, and I didn't set it up. So this is all a test setup for the whole table streaming thing. So I have all the parts and pieces in. Now I just got to get the table set up and figure out how I'm going to attach everything. So um, first trial run is sort of successful. I guess I'm a little too quiet, but I guess I've never been accused of that before, so I'll take that, I guess.
Just yell the whole time.
My wife is in the other room trying to watch a movie, so I don't know if she'd really appreciate that so much. But so tonight, I thought we released 3.0 on Friday last week, and we've had a week to digest it. And I thought, why not with Aaron taking the night off and rolling some dice and taking some time for themselves, I thought, why don't I try and fill in and see what we can do? So, want to shout out Rob. Thanks for joining, buddy. Too bad you're Greenbird strong. Who's Ramming Speed? Do we know Ramming Speed? Do we know who they are?
Don't know.
Okay. Well, we have two listeners. That's exciting. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's just get into it. I did some fun stuff. Aaron showed me some cool stuff, and we can do this. Boop, and we can pull up this little screen here, and it'll show the 350 rules. Boys, I don't think that you guys can see it because it's an additional screen within OBS. So I apologize to you guys for that. Oh
We'll just follow
no!
along on our
Now I know.
PDFs.
Now I know who Ramming Speed is. I'm sorry, buddy. Um, you were in our thoughts and prayers the entire time that we were coming to terms with our minimum point value, and you can still take it. You just got to do a skill too, buddy. So we made it possible, but you're only gonna get one. So
I dare thou to run the elite flatbed.
oh, he will 100%. We'll see it at least once. All right, so I got the 350 pulled up here, and just the first page is read before continuing. Um, uh oh, he's threatening me. He says he has a new love, and remember, we did this. So,
No, don't put we in there, fucker. That's that you.
whoa, whoa,
You did this.
whoa, we broke the plane, and we're not even. What are we? 4
Wow.
minutes in? That's awesome. I'm glad I. I'm
F
glad I
bombs.
put.
Hey, it's 904. It's
Yeah,
904 on Matt.
I'm glad I put it down for not safe for kids. So there we go. All
Also,
right.
as someone with a small collection of flatbed trucks, I know I didn't do this.
Hey, I got 12 of them here, so at one point in time we were going to try and have a scenario of escort. So
Yeah.
I went off the
Well,
deep end before we actually finished the scenario and realized that we couldn't do it, and I bought 12 flatbed trucks. So I've got a few sitting around here myself.
yeah, aren't those are slated to come out one of the new objective packs too, aren't they?
I
From CGL,
I don't
I
know.
thought.
I know the J27 is.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm
Okay.
thinking. J27. Never
Okay.
mind.
They're in talks with Toyota to get the rights to put a machine gun in the bed of the Mini. So then we'll have little mini flatbed Toyotas with machine guns in
Oh,
the back.
now that would be awesome.
All right. Well, let's get started here. So obviously we had a few changes in 350 for 3.0. We deliberated on this for quite some time. As in all things with 350, uh, you know, we're trying new things. We are in a really good place from a rules standpoint, but every tournament, um, every half a year or so, we see some things that aren't necessarily, what we had as far as vision goes. And I think that if we're all honest, Joshua Franklin did an amazing job with the 350 rules, but I don't think that he ever imagined that we would try and do a competitive format with it. So our group is absolutely amazing in how they think and how they come up with ways to solve problems, which in turn stretches the rules and which in turn keeps us on our toes to ensure that we're managing negative play experience. So that is kind of the root of all things, right? Is to ensure that we're providing a good place and a good time for folks. So to that, right? We'll get started here. Minimum PV. So we put in a minimum PV of 7. That is in the construction rules, right? Uh-oh. Did I lose it already?
And that is after skill, correct? After skill modifications.
Right here. PV requirement. Each individual unit must have a PV value of 7 or greater after skill adjustment. So that does mean that you can still take a 5 PV unit, and if you skill it to 2, it does equal 7. So you can still take some of those units if you want. 7 was not derived at by just a number out of the air. We took a look at all of the eras, specifically infantry in the earlier eras, right? Your standard foot platoon, be it rifle, ballistic, or um, just a generic foot platoon. They come in at 7. So that's really how we kind of derived at that number. Now, is that hard number? Is that a hard number in stone? Um, I'll say no, but we'd have to run up against something, that we overlooked that is fairly significant before we would think about reducing that number. The proliferation of junk, and I've had a couple of people reach out to me and say, hey, this whole 7 thing really sucks because now when I get to 348 or 347, I can't take an extra unit. And I'm like, you're right, you can't. And for those of you that were using those points in that fashion, I apologize, but we had quite a few people who were loading up with a plethora of units that were under 7 points and flooding the table, and that's not what we're here to do, and that's not what we want to see at tournaments. So we're going to take a stab at it and see how this goes. So step one, you need to have a 7 PV after skill adjustment for every unit that you will field in your 350. All right, we'll jump back up here, and then we have unique unit. So we've been talking about this for a little while, and I'm glad that we were able to get it into 3.0. You will be allowed one unique unit in your 350 list. How you determine a unique unit. The unique unit will have a list of what factions it is available in any given era, and it will also have the unique tab. So if you don't have these options, right, if you just go to the era and all it does is pop up unique, that is an invalid unit. It needs to be assigned to a faction for it to be able to be taken.
Yeah, and kind of one thing that jumps out, because on the mole, the U doesn't jump out quite readily, but one way to kind of keep your eye out for them is a lot of them will have names next to the
Anything that's
to
in
the
a
unit
quotation marks.
generally.
Usually
Yeah.
when it has quotation marks, or it's a, like you just said, a named unit. Like I know there's a Marauder that's Douglas, right? I think that's
Yep.
Fox's Teeth Commander's variant, or there's one in there that is like that. So for units, so the unique units don't really. I mean, they might have a swing one way or another as far as like damage output or maybe an armor point here or there, but I'm hoping that, if somebody takes Prometheus, right, they're going to paint it up as Victor Standardavian and put it on the field. Or I'm taking this unique unit and he was part of, this faction and this company, so I'm going to paint my army that way. I think that'd be really, really neat to see that synergies happen. So that's that's an option that people now have. Vehicle unit maximum. So this was something that we deliberated on a little bit, but it is something that we're going to give a go at right here. So under variants, most units in a player's force are not allowed to shame the same variant in the chassis. The only units allowed to have more than 2 of the same are combat vehicles with an IT3 or more. Again, this comes down to the earlier eras. Needing an infantry transport, there's usually only the heavy APC, and we didn't want to, with this rule coming in, to really hurt people in the earlier eras for having an infantry transport. So with the caveat of the IT3 or more, you're allowed to have infantry transports of the same. So I can take 2 heavy hover APCs.
Yeah.
As long as
Yeah, because I think in the
go ahead.
I was going to say, because in those early areas, there was a limit, that we were very limited for infantry transport options, right?
Yeah,
Was one of the
there's not
main
very
drivers.
many. There's not
Yeah.
very many.
Yeah. And I think
Yep.
the other quick thing that I wanted to call out, because it's not explicitly said here, is that the CT to IT conversion that we allow for previously will not apply. So if something has like CT6, I still can't take 2 of those. It has to specifically have IT3, correct? Or higher.
Correct. It is.
Yep.
It is this special IT3 or greater. It is not cargo. It is not a conversion. It is a specific unit that is designed to carry infantry. That is the exception to the variance rule.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure to call that out because, it's like, yeah.
That's a good one.
It stops being an issue in the later eras because you have 5 or 6 or 7 options.
Yeah.
The trouble with the early eras is when you only have one, you don't want to limit people to only having one, especially for games where you need infantry.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think that those early areas we didn't even have the Maxims around, right? Really, it's just those transports. The hover, the tracked, very limited for sure.
Andrew, you're still very quiet according
Yeah,
to the chat.
I know. I just got a message from Matt too on a private deal saying, hey, you need to crank your mic up, and I've got everything turned up as high as it'll go, guys. I'm sorry. Ooh, don't do that. Stop clicking buttons, and we'll just try and muddle our way through it. I apologize, guys. This is like I said, this is the first time I'm doing this, so
Andrew,
let's. Yeah.
just just put your mouth up to it like you're trying to make money off of it.
There we go. Is that a little better? All right, here we go.
Oh yeah.
All right, so we were talking about variants. So, combat vehicles with IT3 or greater. So that means if you really, really wanted to, you could take the Maxim uh, IT12 and have two clown cars if you wanted. Uh, the, the the continuation of allowing of two of the same is conventional infantry. So I can take two foot platoon SRM infantries if I want. Battle armor, again, I can take two elemental heavy machine guns, right? But as soon as I reach the elemental heavy machine gun 2, I can't take elementals, say AP Gauss, right? I have to take a different elemental chassis, like an elemental 3 would be an allowed secondary choice as far as battle armor goes. And of course, the unit that everybody loves, Protomex, are allowed to have two units in their point as well. Getting back up here, so again, we just covered unit maximum. Oh, we skipped right over unit maximum or vehicle maximum. So vehicle maximum has been changed. We went from 8 to 6 right here. Um, we had 8 vehicles before 3.0. We've moved it down to 6 vehicles. Part of that is typically people come to BattleTech for the big stompy robots. People stay for the big stompy robots. It is a game about battle mechs. Yes, we do have other things, but we want to make sure that we stay focused on the things of what the game is. So, giving this a go. It's again, all things are subject to change if we see a negativeness that happened to it. But so far I've been pretty happy with combat vehicles going to 6 and the rule of 2 for them, right? So I can't take 2 opponent E's anymore. I can take an opponent prime and an opponent E. I can't take 2 Oro Hags. I can take the Oro heavy tank and an Oro heavy Hag. Um, I think it's going to add some more diversity to the game and require people to expand a little bit. So I'm excited to see how that goes.
Being that we're live and we can get a live reaction to this, the only question I have with that, Andrew, is why do you hate Mario?
I don't hate Mario. I actually reached out to Mario directly and I said, dude, I apologize for what's coming. You know, I'll give you a handy, at Gen Con house or whatever we need to smooth this over. But yeah, we've tried to make Mario feel like he's okay still. So yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I have the PDF is up on my screen and it covers the chat window. So if I'm not seeing anything that comes towards me through the chat, I apologize because I'm looking at the PDF as we're talking. So
I'm trying to keep a good eye out. So far, nobody's directly attacked you other than you and your mic, but we're past that.
I know. I'm sorry, guys. My mic is horrible, and I will fix that for next time. I just don't know what to do to make it better at this point, and I don't want to screw up what we're doing. So I apologize, and I'll do better next time. Next up on the list here, we have off-board artillery are not considered units. We had a couple of things that were wrong on the artillery page, particularly my screw up in the list. I listed the offboard artillery thumper is 5 and not 6. We talked back and forth about what we were going to have for that, and apparently my brain didn't update on what we decided to go with. Um, One of the reasons that we've decided to move offboard artillery to not be counted as units is in a upcoming point release for 3.0. We're going to be introducing an optional rule for battlefield support. And once we get battlefield support tested, I don't know whether we will keep offboard artillery as an option or move all of that to being battlefield support only. So, um, sound off in the chat of keep it or let's see what happens. Of course, I know it's hard to say when we haven't done it yet, but be curious what people have to say. So,
Does offboard artillery fall under the rule of 2 also now, or could you take 2 of each?
so we effed up and forgot to put the rule of 2 back onto this page when we re-edited it, because quite frankly, Aaron rewrote this whole page and left that off. So I think we're going to follow, we will follow rule of 2 for each card, but you can take each card, you can take 2 of each card for right now, because I'm curious to see what will happen. Right? If you
So
want
technically, you still take 4 artillery then,
if
2
you
of
want,
each kind,
exactly.
if you wanted
if
to.
If you want to put 26 points into artillery, you can.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, this is something that is different from Alpha Strike Commander's Edition in that in 350, the artillery is not the hand of God that it is in Alpha Strike Commander's Edition. Meaning, you need to have some unit that you're shooting at have valid LOS to that.
Yeah, you still need a spotter.
You need
right?
a spotter to be able to see the thing you're shooting at, right? I can't land an artillery shell on the hovercraft that are hiding behind a hill with nobody being able to see it, right? That's not going to happen. So one thing to note that during spotting for artillery, that unit gets the keyword spotter, right? So while the offboard artillery card is not modifiable, meaning it doesn't get adjusted for spotter movement, it doesn't get adjusted for spotter LOS, like if there's partial cover or trees or that kind of thing. You just need to be able to see the thing that you're going to drop artillery on. But it does count towards that unit if it is going to shoot as well.
Yeah, spotting and shooting rule still applies for the spotter.
Correct. So,
but the target number for the arty card never changes, no matter what if the spotter is shooting or not. You just need a valid spotter. The card's value is always its target number, unmodifiable.
100%. All right, and of course, then I did talk a little bit about we did have some offboard artillery. The PV changed; they came down a little bit, just to. We've had a lot of conversation around what is the conversion rate between BSP and PV, and I'm not entirely sure why we're always having that conversation, because in my conversations with the powers that be, they don't foresee a need to have that sort of conversion because battlefield support is its own accounting system, right?
Yeah, BSP is going to kind of take that over, and if we end up adopting that, then there's really no point of messing around with it, right?
Right. So that covers construction rules. Does anybody have anything here that's that they want to talk about more with construction rules, or whether we want to clarify anything around construction rules?
I haven't seen anything really come up question-wise around so far the topics that we haven't already kind of addressed as we've flowed. And I don't have anything kind of sitting at the top of my head at the moment.
Awesome. Okay.
I don't know if Tom or Topa does.
Oh, that's right. Topa's here with us.
Yeah,
Good
he
evening, sir.
snuck in.
Yeah.
Surprise.
How you
Good
doing?
evening, Topa.
How you doing, buddy?
Good. How about you guys?
Well, we're just
Not too bad, sir.
quietly talking through the microphone to, talk about things that are important, and nobody can hear me, I guess. And
I can hear you.
and I don't know how to fix it. So.
Yeah, that's the tough part. I think for our Discord chat, everybody sounds crystal clear, but yeah, just something with the mic going to YouTube for you at the moment.
All right. Well, it's I got a little list.
We'll
of
put it
things.
on the list.
I got a little list
Yeah.
of things to fix, and that'll be one of them. So, all right. So let's go back to we've got we can go into scenarios. First off is capture the flag. The flag token has now been defined as a 1-inch token. And part of the reason for that is we ended up having a lot of questions about, well, if there's a unit that's carrying the flag and I kill that unit, can I pick the flag up in the end phase? And one thing that I want to encourage everyone to take some time and read through is on page 28. If you're taking notes, we have this end phase order, right? This governs how and when all of the various different things happen when it comes to the end at a scenario of when can I pick up a flag, when does the flag drop, when does the flag spawn, when do battle armor enter, when do battle armor exit.
Yeah, I like that step order.
This
that
phase order
really helps.
This is really important. This has been in the book for, I think, since 2.0. Matter of fact, I think it was even in before then, but it was kind of, I think, buried further into the book. But I'm going to call this out for folks that I would really like you to ensure that you, and Aaron did a nice job of creating boxes for all this stuff. So if a person wanted to go through and pull out the boxes to create their own little cheat sheet, I think that there's opportunity there to not make that a very hard thing to accomplish. So this end phase order is important. It governs when and how things happen in each scenario. Encourage everyone to look at that and know it, love it, and love it, and know it. So flag tokens are now 1 inch, and if a unit that is carrying the flag is destroyed, the flag will replace the unit that it was carrying. So it doesn't.
It drops right beneath it, right?
Correct. It does not drop in base contact. It replaces the unit on the table, and with it being 1 inch, there is no way anyone can be touching the flag in the end phase.
Yeah.
So it'll kind of hopefully
remove
up some of those questions of, well, when can I do that, right? So we also kind of came up with this good GUD.
I have a question about that.
Oh, go ahead.
So what if I'm in an Omni-Mech carrying battle armor, and the mech dies and the battle armor falls on the token?
Battle armor are deployed in the end phase in base contact with the transporting unit, and then the transporting unit gets removed and the token replaces the transporting unit. There is no way for you to pick the flag up.
Perfect.
That is all by design. Any other questions? Cool. All right. So we also kind of came up with this acronym, right? So we can hear people say, "Are you good?" So good is grounded, uncontested, and dismounted. So whenever you see GUD, that stands for grounded, uncontested, and dismounted. Saved us some words throughout this whole thing, and Aaron got kind of excited because he wanted to hear people screaming, "Are you good?" So there you go.
I'm going to do my butler jobs. There may have been a coach that has entered the room.
Uh-oh. Really?
All hail, coach.
The Matt and Aaron. Okay. Well, here we go. They're just trying to take some of the limelight, I guess.
They're just hearing all the mistakes. We're like, we got to clean these some
That's
bitches up.
probably very true too. All right, let's go. Let's get back here. So covered OA flag tokens are now 1 inch.
It really is best when Coach talks when he's muted.
They just stare into the camera.
OAT size requirements.
Can't hear a word you're saying, Coach.
Can't remember what the hell that was about.
And we can't read your lips, Coach.
I think he's talking about here the templates. So the templates were kind of split out a little bit more. So we have the 5-inch template, which is the King of the Hill template. We have the 3-inch diameter templates, which are used for domination and capture the flag. Then we have the 3-inch bunker template that has the wedge area of the template for bunker infiltration. And then we also have the 1-inch diameter template, which is now identified as the flag token and also the token for headhunter and the token for hold the line. So
it helps when you set the keybind for push to talk.
Oh, there you go, buddy. Thank you for joining. All right, so now we're up to Headhunter. So in Headhunter, we did make a change because there was a lot of gaminess that was happening in Headhunter. And Headhunter, each player is required to announce 2 units as a command unit when those units are deployed. At least 1 command unit must be the highest PV unit being deployed. If there is a tie, the player must designate 1. Command units cannot be conventional infantry or battle armor. So the only real change to Headhunter there is that the highest PV unit on the table must be a command unit. Good there? Good there. So then we got 2 new scenarios, Under Pressure and Stranglehold. Those are brainchild and brainchildren of the folks in Iowa. They're pretty good scenarios. We had a small group at Bovies last weekend, and we had 3 games played of each, and I was in the Stranglehold and Under. They each have some different tactical things that are a little different, and I think it caught a couple of folks off guard that I think was good. So I would encourage you all to read those scenarios, give them a go. I would love to hear some feedback on them if at all possible. As of right now, because they are in beta, I think I can say that these scenarios will not be in the playlist for Gen Con. So don't have to consider those scenarios. We will still just have the 8. These scenarios may make their first light of day at KSAG 6. So there you go. Under Pressure and Stranglehold, two new scenarios. So now we're going to get into a few things that 350 does different than what the Alpha Strike Commanders Edition book is. Let's get, so page 27. Bang, right there. So in Alpha Strike Commanders Edition, there is a rule called non-infantry cover. I think in the Commanders Edition, and it's been a minute since I read this because we have hours in the book. I remember non-infantry cover in AS Commanders Edition as a +3 if you were shooting at the infantry, and you received a +1 shooting out no matter what, whether it went through the unit that you were taking cover from or not. Again, I'd have to go back and reread the book on how that works in Commander's Edition, but this is how we are doing it in 350. So, much like in Commander's Edition, at the end of the movement phase, if a unit is in base-to-base contact with a non-infantry unit, the infantry unit may declare that it's taking non-infantry cover. When that unit is taking non-infantry cover, if the line of sight of an attacking unit goes through the base of the unit that they are taking cover from, they receive a +2 to their attack on top of battle armor, on top of stealth, anything else like that. But what we have is, much like with flak, a margin of failure of 2 or less, the attack will hit the covering non-infantry unit instead. So there's a lot less wasted shots if you are shooting at one of those units.
And Andrew, one kind of clarity thing in there, and this might be a language cleanup for later. A margin of failure 0 is less than 2, but really the margin of failure that we're looking for is margin of failure 2 or 1. It'll hit the covering unit.
Correct.
Obviously, a 0 or anything less than that will hit the targeted unit, right? So
You guys are killing me.
I know it's that rules lawyer language, right?
Yeah. I get it.
There's always going to be one of those people, where it's just, it says 2 or less.
Yep.
Because
I mean,
then does it strike the unit and the covering if I don't miss it? No.
Maybe.
Right.
I mean, you got to roll a 5. You got to roll for it, but
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
well, I mean, if it
Here
says
we
2
go.
or less, then if it's 2 or less and you miss the infantry, then does it still hit the mech or whatever's covering it?
If you have a margin of failure of 3, nothing happens. So if I need an 8 to hit and I roll a 5, shots don't hit anything. If I need an 8 and I roll a 6, that damage point hits the unit that they're taking cover from. So if I need an 8, a 6 and a 7 will hit the unit that they're taking cover from, and 8 will hit the infantry.
The targeted unit. Yep.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Did
Okay.
you guys think about maybe changing that for super heavies to like a +3 instead of a +2?
Ooh.
That is not a terrible idea. I don't dislike it.
Yeah.
I
Or
guess,
anything with an LG,
I
right?
guess,
Yeah.
I
Like
guess
the large.
the question I would throw to this esteemed group is,
Well-
does that start adding rules for rules' sake?
Well, let me quick jump in, because if I'm not mistaken, the rules for large units actually block line of sight
Correct.
for things behind it that are not large as well. So that's why you couldn't do the cover from a large unit, because they technically would obfuscate versus
go.
see through it.
That's why we can't. There you go.
Hey, that's my one useful thing for the night. Thank you. I'll be
Good
signing
job.
off.
Good job, Stone.
Talk to you next week.
that's also why, and I cannot remember who brought it up, but I think it was one of the Colorado guys talked about castling with 2 Ares mechs, where you put one in hull down and use it as cover for the one behind it.
Oh, some bitch.
That sounds like shenanigans from a one Cerberus.
I mean, he's not wrong, so you got to give him credit on that.
That's straight up Cerberus shenanigans right there. But he's right.
I just need one of the Ares mechs to have Omni, so I can have my triple nesting doll tactic that Andrew keeps yelling at me about.
You guys are killing me. You're killing me, Bobby. All right, so probably one of the more controversial rules that we've included in 3.0 is people started gaming the scenarios and taking, instead of big armored units to protect say hold the line or covering your headhunter token. They're using high TMM units, and instead of moving, just jump straight up and down on the token.
So,
And
so
go ahead.
I was gonna say one quick thing is normally we paused after we got a construction. Pause for any comments
Oh.
because we just moved out of scenarios, right? We're kind of jumping into format rules now. I was
Yes.
just if there's any group questions or comments, I've addressed a few things in the chat. I don't think there's any pending questions, so it's more just if anybody here has any final comments.
Well,
I guess the
Go ahead.
one thing I would say is we did have people here this past weekend. 8 people trying out the 2 different new scenarios. They're different. They're a lot different than what the other 8 existing ones were. They're challenging. They're not things that you can just straight up list build for lists that were good for some of the other stuff. I really enjoyed both. I went 0-2, which makes it even more fun because I got my butt kicked and still enjoyed it. But no, I
That's
thought
good.
they're a lot of fun, but there's definitely some wrinkles to them. And as Chris Hesby in the chat pointed out, like read them, practice them, because when they do show up at KSAG, you're going to need to know how to play it because they're not as easy as some of the other ones.
So you mentioned that forwardingly. Are you foreshadowing that they will be out of beta by KSAG?
I mean, if you were listening a minute ago, Andrew already said it, but
Okay.
you were probably too busy coming up with
I
your
was
one.
probably drinking. Yeah.
Stone, you gotta listen, man. You gotta listen.
What? Huh? Huh?
Stone, you've got to share the microphone.
He's wearing
Take the booze out of your ears.
he's wearing headphones, but they're not turned on.
Ooh, what is the sexiness there? Is that Orion? Is that what it says?
It's Origin, Dragon Milk Origin. It is. My blood was getting a little thick, so I had to thin it down, baby.
Nice. Okay. I got water, so I didn't grab any whiskey yet. So, all right. So we got out of scenarios, and I think we
Whoa.
covered that, right?
Aries Games and Minis has joined us.
Games and minis.
I gotta have somebody else to say it.
Look at this guy, Mr. Derek King. Thank you for joining us. How you doing, bud? Uh-oh. Did we lose him?
Uh-oh.
He muted himself. He doesn't know how to fix it.
He came in and he left.
The thing is I'm wondering if my order that just arrived today was big enough that he could take the night off. That had to be what it was.
What?
Yeah.
I did get all those new Hextet neoprenes for all my classic groups too. I think I got all, and of course you had to buy 2 of each so that you could play, all the different iterations of it. I was like, I hate it when they do that shit. I gotta buy double of everything. But I'm sure Derek loves it.
What do I love?
When we order 2 of everything for no particular reason. Hopefully.
I appreciate it.
There he is. All right, so we're moved out of scenarios. We covered one format rule. We've covered, and then we're going to talk about the controversial one at this point, which is the jumping in place. So we've gone round and round on this a little bit, and when we started talking about where does this affect, right? And this affects hold the line. This affects King of the Hill. If you really wanted to, it could probably affect capture the flag. It could affect domination, and it definitely affects bunkers. So
yeah, I think capture the flag, right? Especially from the enemy within your score zone, right?
Contesting
Factor.
your opponent's home.
Yeah, contesting.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's a tactic that was popping up that is, while enterprising, has a lot of fail bads and negative play experience, and that is, we take that very seriously with what we're doing, and it's kind of our job to ensure that we manage that, right? So for jumping in place, because technically it is a valid movement mode in Commander's Edition. No one is arguing that fact. It's the fact that we have objectives in our packets, and we're driving people to accomplish things that at times you need to defend, right? So I believe it was some folks in Southern California that came up with this defensive measure, and kudos and hats off to them for thinking outside of the box. But it's been providing a lot of feel bads, and
Yeah.
to
It's not in the spirit,
no,
right?
it definitely is not. So to combat that, we've put this jumping in place rule. So, and I'll just read straight from the booklet. A unit starting and ending its movement on the same OAT and using jump movement will not receive their full TMM. Instead, they will receive only a +1 for jump movement for any TMM and must also include the +2 for their attacks. This unit is allowed to change facing, but it does not receive a standstill bonus. Now, I've had a lot of people reach out and ask, well, what about jump strong? What about jump weak? It says, instead, they will only get a +1 for jump movement. It does
When
not. Go ahead.
No, sorry, and I'm probably jumping the gun and stealing thunder, but we did have a question come up in the chat. That kind of referenced, okay, this addresses like your butcher birds and your other crazy units that have the jump strong, right? Even the jump strong 1, jump strong 2,
Yep.
and getting massive advantageous for that. But what about we all know another bane of our existence is the harasser 36-inch mover, natural TMM5, right? So this one can still do that. Except for on 1-inch oats.
Correct.
Because it can't move the inch, right?
Correct. So it's
still an exception there,
there
right?
are exceptions, right?
Yep.
Now, there are some things coming down the pipeline that
But you can't take 2 of those anymore.
Correct.
So that's at least one thing, right? And the greater, and also with artillery not being counted as units, you have better counters, more affordable counters, because the points have come down on those artillery too. So now I can only take 1 of those, and I have easier, cheaper counters for that stuff too. So that's, I think, some of the balance where, the jump strong was a little rough, where the other one was addressed with the rule of 2 and some, more readily available counters potentially, right?
Correct. Yes. As far as the really fast movers and moving 2, 3, 4 inches and getting their full TMM, I know that there's some work going into addressing that for a future release, not of ours but Commander's Edition. So those of you that are going to be relying on that as a tactic, I will caution you to maybe develop a better means of doing that. So moving on from that, if no one's got anything else on that one, I know that this is kind of a big one, because
So
we had initially left in King of the Hill, and or left in an exception for King of the Hill. And as we went round and round and tried to talk about it, we decided that we just give this a go for all OATs and see what happens. Go ahead, Bovie.
that was going to be the thing I was going to make sure you addressed, is that it is all OATs, including a King of the Hill template.
Correct.
Just because I think that's going to come up in conversations in different game modes and things. So, yeah, I just wanted to make sure we talked about that.
Yep. That the exception made it to the final edit, and I think Charles and I were working on this, and we decided to pull it and see what happens. See what kind of feedback we get. Again, right, because we're trying to minimize negative play experience, right? In those high TMM jumping units, we have a minimum of jump strong 2 for a reason. and I'll give a tip of the hat to Hesby. Uh, while we were at Bovie's last weekend, just illustrated why we did that, right? Um, every player that played against him basically played the game at 9s and 11s the whole game for units that he took. And if we allowed a larger jump strong value in place, that would just skew that much more. And that's no fun, right? And we don't want everybody taking the same units and fielding the same armies to take advantage of the same things. So,
yeah. Well, one quick clarity, because I think Bovie, I mentioned something, then Bovie, you said not on King of the Hill. Can you still jump from side to side on the King of the Hill? And does that break the jump in place rule where, like, if I jump from one side of King of the Hill to the other with a jump strong 2, I can still get my mod for doing that, even though I've still stayed on the template, right? It's just every other oat.
incorrect. This is
Okay,
every,
so
this is
it's
every
King of the
oat.
Hill. It's everyone.
Every
Okay,
oat
okay,
that is on
perfect.
the table. If you start and stop your movement on the same oat,
On the oat.
you're using jumping movement, you get a +1 for your jump movement. That's it.
That's it. Okay.
But I mean, doesn't that really
Mm.
take away the spirit or the intent that you guys had of them just jumping up and down in place? Because if they're on the King of the Hill, which is a 5-inch template, and if I'm jumping across it, I'm jumping more than an inch. I'm jumping 5 inches. So
You're not wrong,
why?
but here's where that came in, right? Is as we were writing this rule, it came into covering headhunter. It came in covering hold the line. It came in covering standing in front of the bunker. It came in standing on the home base during capture the flag. It came in to holding your back points for domination, right? It became a we're doing all of these things instead of it's it's objects, right? It's the thing that you're after that you're providing a means of gaming the system. Now, does this mean that it will stay in place? It may not. We may walk it back and say, okay, so this is only on all 3-inch and 1-inch oats, right? And eventually, if we get some other feedback, if as we play test this, right? Everybody here, I think, understands that we are typically the tip of the spear, right? We are pushing rules and we are having people think about things in new and interesting ways that either expose the rules of we need clarity here or outright this doesn't work, right? Could this be an overcorrection? I won't argue that. It very likely could be. But it's a place for us to start. And
Yeah.
and I want people to understand that, right? I think that we have done a pretty good job of interfacing with the player groups, with the folks, and taking feedback. And if we have something that the players just outright say, this is terrible, we are very open and able to make changes. And I encourage you guys to give us good feedback, not this breaks what I wanted to do because I am playing in a way that gives people a negative play experience. Because that ultimately is what our goal is. We need to make the game better for everyone, right? And Topa, you might be right. Is this an overreaching deal for King of the Hill? Maybe. But it became one of those things as we were writing it and we started going over, well, it's this one, this one, this one, this. It became almost every scenario. So we decided let's do it, and if we need to walk it back, we can.
Yeah, I kind of addressed in chat. I was like, at this point, well, it's obviously going to stay intact till Gen Con, but coming out of Gen Con, especially with that large sample, right, between the doubles and singles that are going to go on, I think we'll have enough feedback there that we should know right away if we need to or not, right? And we can address it coming out of there. But like I say, need to see it in action, right? And kind of get positive You know, even negative comments can be done in a positive way about it, right? You know, here's why, right? Don't just complain about it. You know, give good feedback on, you know, what it did, why you felt that way. And right, there's always going to be ears for that, right? What I always encourage too is, you know, that bitching and complaining without a resolution factor is just noise. Don't be noise, right?
It took us a couple of years to really start to see on the Discord the conversations in 350 playtest that, to your point, and I'll use your words as well, the bitching about, well, I can't take advantage of this thing anymore.
Yeah. Is it a me thing or is it a we problem?
Became more of a, hey, I think there's a potential for an exploit here that isn't healthy for the game. We should really talk about this and close the loop. And it was about 2 years in that it took us a little while to get to that point. And I want everybody to keep that in mind, right? That some of this stuff you may not be happy with. And I'm not saying that those feelings are invalid. They have meaning. But understand that where we're coming from and understand where we're trying to get. And that is to have a healthy rule set and a healthy gameplay. So, like I said, you know, did we jump all over this one and maybe go too far? I'm not going to say yes or no. But after Gen Con, I think we're going to have
we should see
some good
feedback. We'll have a good sample.
And again, I'm going to be out at Desert Hot Drop in later September. So that'll be another good sampling. We had such an amazing my time at KSAG last year after the 350 tournament, where we sat for, I think it was a couple of hours, and we talked about rules, potential changes, things that were coming up. That to me was absolute gold for getting that opportunity to talk with really good players and players who are invested in what's happening here. And I fully plan on taking advantage of that at KSAG 6 again. So we have 3 big tournaments coming up in the next 6 months that I think we should get some good feedback, some good data, and we can come in here and make changes if we need to.
Yeah, like I say,
just let you know.
Oh, go ahead, Topa.
I was just going to say 2 things. One is at Origins, we are going to keep up with the 2.0. We're not going to use 3.0 rules just because it's too fresh.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think what you guys are going to see is at Gen Con, since people aren't going to be able to use the standstill jumping, you're going to see them taking faster units to do King of the Hill and stay on the oak. That's just my thinking.
And that's possible. And that's, yes, I'm not going to argue that. But at the same time, those faster units typically aren't hard to kill, right? If I'm in short range to something that has a TMM4, I'm either hitting it at 7s or 8s, depending upon what my skill is, right? And if they've got 4, 5, 6 pips, I can eliminate that from the table, right? They're not jumping behind me. There's pros and cons for both of this. I'm not gonna argue that because I agree with it. This is something that, again, when we started talking about this rule of, well, it covers this and this and this and this and this, and it became damn near every scenario, we decided to say, hey, let's just see what it does, and we can walk it back.
So I guess that's my feeling on the whole thing is I can honestly say I haven't played this on King of the Hill yet. I don't love it, but if it maybe adjusts my playstyle for one scenario, but fixes the feel bads in 4 others, I'm good with it. Like, we're trying to fix 8 scenarios and not 1. And so, yeah, it definitely will adjust the style of play and some of the tactics in King of the Hill, but at the same time, if it fixes some of those feel bads for bunkers and domination and those other scenarios, like that's a worthwhile exchange, because jumping up and down or jumping in small spaces and getting that 5-6 TMM for some of those jump strong units, that gets to be really tough.
The there's a term I use kind of in my line of work, managing disappointment, right? We're never going to make everybody happy, but the goal is to minimize the disappointment while in general raising the roof for everything else, right, as best we can. So and it even harkens back to a little bit of I think it's a Star Trek quote, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one, right? If there's one scenario that, yeah, okay, that one unit type now struggles in this one, but we've managed disappointment better in 3 or 4 others, that's a net positive, right? But again, I think, the thing there is we can kind of deliberate on this for a while, right? This is one of those rabbit hole conversations for sure around, banning units, nerfing certain things. And I never think there's a perfect solution, right? Because you're never going to make everybody happy with it. I think you just got to find out what is overall a net positive play experience, while, again, managing minimum disappointment for others, as best you can. So it's always going to be a balance, right? You're never going to get everything you want as a player, but your needs, personal needs, right? I can't do this. Well, as soon as I hear I can't, then I know it's selfish, right? So don't be selfish, right? Think about it as a whole, right? There's a lot of us players, right? That's going to get more ear tone. And again, but think about that as you're playing too. Is this a me or we situation? And again, think about the people you're playing against too, right? So I don't know. I'll pause there because I'll ramble on forever.
Well, thank you guys. All good things. I mean, those were good comments. And again, remember, guys, the whole goal of this is to have a healthy system. So, you guys are involved with that, and we want to encourage you guys to push the limits like you always have, but understand that our job is to manage negative play experience. Does this do
Yep.
it? Maybe, maybe not, but it's something to try.
Yeah, we got to try, right? We at least have to make attempts at it. We'll take feedback, and if we need to change our course, then we will, if it makes sense.
All right, so moving on here then. Artillery scatter direction. We've always had this conversation of which way is north. It just made more sense to have the scatter arrow be opposite of your home, away from your home edge, so that the direction artillery is coming in from is the direction it'll scatter to. So it just seemed to make more sense for us than having to remember which way is north or have an agreed upon that's the direction. Just speed up play, right?
Yeah.
This maximum elevation is 20. It's a D20 for helicopters. We didn't need people to try and say that I'm 40 inches above the table. We don't need to worry about that.
Yeah, especially since range is base to base, right?
Base to
Elevation
base.
doesn't play into range,
No
so
difference.
it's just a. Yeah.
So this is a big one here. A pretty decent deviation from Commander's Edition, and there's reasons behind this, right? So infantry line of sight is now not determined by model, but determined by base. So one of the reasons we did this is that when we see people do modeling for battle armor, you may put one unit on a base and call it a battle armor troop, right? Or the other piece of it is if you take the elementals that have the 2 jumping units on top of it, and there are certain situations on the table where, well, I can see those 2 units over cover. Do I have line of sight? And typically with battle armor and conventional infantry, right, they're supposed to cover the base. So to help with a lot of TO questions that happen on line of sight questions, which are the majority of questions that we get, for infantry. Infantry are no longer going to be determined by model, but can you see 50% or greater of the base?
I think that's great because the big thing there, I think one of my times, everybody said, well, you can't get 5 Coronas on a base. Challenge accepted. I did, but it gets obscene, right? It's one of those things where it almost says sometimes, depending on the battle armor you choose, you can't, especially if you take like Comstar, Word of Blake, you're trying to jam 6 on, try to be accurate. It just isn't fundamental, right? Possible. It shouldn't, people shouldn't have to put through that stress. So putting the single on, right, is enough. And this kind of helps cover that, right? Where we can be reasonable from tabletop expectations for modeling, but then also be respectful, from a miniatures and gaming perspective. And that way too. So that's my 2 bits on it.
Well,
I like it.
And also, like, if you happen to peruse over to Ares Games and Minis right now, you can find
Oh,
the prone Purifier battle armor. So I can actually put a prone unit, battle armor unit, laying on a base.
wouldn't that be dirty? Wouldn't
And
that be
so
dirty?
that's why what you're trying to get rid of here, right? You're trying to get rid of a unit. It's a unit that exists. There's nothing wrong with it. You can lay an elemental down on it. You can make them kneeling. You can do all kinds of things. So it's just trying to get rid of some of those small things. And again, I want my battle armor to look cool on the base, but that doesn't necessarily mean they have to be, in this corner or in that corner or laying down or standing up. It's all about how the bases are, and especially for like the jumping elementals.
Yeah. And just like
I mean, you
that,
guys,
Ares Games and Minis just sold out of prone Purifier battle armor for the Origins AS350 tournaments.
We are
I
playing.
mean, Stone, you guys,
We are playing Jihad for KSAG, so that would probably be a hard unit to get a hold of.
hey Stone, why aren't you using the base for the Omega Super Heavies for your Word of Blake or your Comstar?
Oh, there you go. Right. Overflow.
That's why we have to put freaking rules in place, you guys.
So
we are starting to get in the market.
So the chat is now saying that they think that vehicles should apply to the rule of shifting things towards the edge of the base also, because some of the smaller vehicles like Savannah Masters and Skimmers can be put into the edge of a base as well.
So, to be perfectly honest with you guys, I said the exact same thing. So, this is us dipping our toe into, one, how well would this be received, and two, how well does it play out at the table. This could be expanded, but we need to see how this works first. So, again, we're in a good place. Uh, we don't want to make massive changes. We don't want to deviate so far from the book that, you know, we've had a lot of people, even for Adepticon, right? That we had a lot of people get pretty excited that, oh, well, we're not playing by the book anymore. A lot of these things are done because of what we are trying to do that the Commander's Edition never took into consideration, right? It was never even thought of that these rules would be applied this way. So it is something. It is something that we did talk about. It was something that I proposed of. Should this also be used for vehicles? I had a long conversation with Mr. Franklin about the determining LOS and the 2/3 and 1/3, and is there a better way to define that? Is there a better way to illustrate that? We talked about an example that I typically use when I'm telling people, this is how I determine LOS. So we'll see what happens there. But yes, that was brought up. Yes, I do think that the 50% of the base on everything but mechs has validity. But again, we don't want to throw the book out. We want to show change. We want to show that, hey, the vision that we have works. The vision people can see and understand why we're doing it this way. It makes sense. Does it get adopted? And that's where we're at. So
yeah, I think, like you said, it's one of those things where too much change is overwhelming. This is, I think, as you guys have kind of put it, this is enough change to be impactful and felt good enough, and we'll have to see how the rest is there, and there could be more, right? Like you said, it could be expanded, but because there are a few exceptions. The skimmers, Savannah Masters that share the same model, and then like Gabriel's, right? There are those fine exceptions that only take a portion of that base up. Um, Again, yeah, we may fold that in, but again, that's feedback, right?
Yes.
The again ever evolving, ever improving. So, or if you're in the a lot of the manufacturing's the Kaizen mentality, right? Continuous improvement. So,
So to
yeah, keep the feedback coming.
to Corey's point, Mr. Held made a comment or asked why 50%, not 1/3. Same reason that we go 1/3, 1/3, 2/3 in mechs. What's 1/3? It's a 1/3 is something that I think has more argument or more in the eye of the beholder than 50%.
Yeah. Well, and on vehicles, why 1/3, right? Any vehicles, mechs, VTOLs, right? Wigs and all that stuff works is because everything is a 1-to-1 representation. Where battle armor, depending on how you choose to model it and why it has to go by base and 50% of base, in my mind, and where I can really kind of dig into that, is because, yeah, you can put one model, or you can be the idiot like myself who puts the actual 5 Corona battle armor on there. And then now you're slicing models in half if you've got odd numbers, right? And stuff like that. So the base makes sense for infantry, battle armor, right? Any of those types, because it can get affected on the way you model.
Correct.
Otherwise, you'd have to make a uniform modeling template, which is ridiculous.
Well, I mean, but that gets into what Bodai was just asking about too. Is there is standardized templates for LOS, and while I know that they exist, and would it help potentially, but in my opinion, having run multiple large tournaments, I think that would slow the game down considerably.
Yeah, because then you're pulling out these templates, right, where the base is a universal, conversation piece, right? It's easily defined. Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna do the next thing. So we had this concept of at Adepticon, I got inundated with questions about, well, if I'm over here, and I can see this corner of the door, can I shoot it? And the whole point of having this zero area and a wedge was to help alleviate those types of questions. And after Adepticon found out that, came to the realization that we did not define this well enough. So the bunker template LOS introduces the idea of an LOS zone when it comes to bunkers. These lines, consider this like the front and rear firing arc on the hex of your mech. If you are not 50% on the inside of this zone with your hex base, you cannot shoot the door or anything in 0 that are level 1 tall, so combat vehicles and infantry. We had to make this last line here that if you are standing on top, yes, you can shoot down because you will have line of sight, because that was the first thing that was brought up when I said you had to be in the zone. So I hope that this clears up a lot of the questions around bunkers and can I shoot or can't I shoot. If you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to talk through them or work through that. Anybody?
Yeah, I think the only comment that's kind of come up is, the template clarity. So with this, there is some template cleanup that's happened with 3 for this specifically because of this. That's created some of that, right? Because there's differences At some tournaments we've played with a 3D, right? That's kind of affected perception and interpretation. So I think shifting to this for now with this template should hopefully kind of clean it up, right? Especially with the kind of the call out of the bunker template itself. Hopefully.
Well, and Bodai just brought it up. Like I have these bunkers with the slanted doors, right? Where the slanted walls in front of the doors.
Yeah.
That makes it so you think you can see it, right? But this
Yeah.
defines that as the wedge, and it makes more sense. I mean, that way, if you play with this set of bunkers, it's this way. If you play with this set of bunkers, it's a different way. No, it's pretty universal now, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and it's this, and if your 3D printed don't match this bunker template, well, then probably shift to the template, right? Or find a 3D print that matches this. Is kind of the goal, right? Because then there shouldn't be ambiguity around that. Shouldn't be.
Well,
But at the end of the
at the end of the day, I think Tom, I think you're going to say the same thing I'm going to. It really, with this definition of how this bunker LOS zone works, as long as everyone is playing with the same bunker, I don't care what the bunker is anymore, right? Whether you have sloped walls, whether you're playing with the hockey puck that has a cutout, because there's been multiple people.
It's ground level line of sight now, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So this clears up all the various different 3D bunkers that are out and available. It encourages you to use whatever you would like, but as long as everyone is using the same, this will apply, and I think it makes it it puts a standard on it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Like, yes, it's nice to know that these bunkers all have a 45-degree wedge, and the ones we used at Adepticon had a 38-degree wedge. Yeah, it's going to change a thing or two. It's going to make a difference a little bit, but at the end of the day, like your opponent's going through the same thing you are.
Yeah. There was one question that come up from Corey with a K in the chat about the bunker thing. Go ahead. If you saw it, go ahead. You take it.
Too. And Corey, you're not wrong. I need to get with the group and talk to the group and understand that. But Kaz just pointed that out too. That the bunker door is not a unit, right? And that is what Narc and Tag work against. Of course, Tag works on the ground too, but yes.
Two things that
go ahead.
I was going to say, that may help some of the discussion around that is Tag is only used for IF and indirect fire, right? And artillery, which is already you can't attack the bunker with those types. IF and IF indirect fire and artillery can't be targeted on the bunker. So that nullifies any attempts at tag, whether it's a unit or not, right? Because there's special bunker rules that don't allow for, you have to have direct line of sight. Now the narc thing is then the only thing that remains, right? So then that's where I'll kind of pause and let you take back over, right? Is the easy one to get rid of is the tag mentality, because it should only affect IF and artillery, which are already banned from attacks on a bunker, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. I've just pulled up the bunker scenario. And it does say bunker templates are immune to heat, IF, and art damage. Corey, that is a valid question of why does not NARC not work, and I think your brother did point out that NARC is specific to units, and the door is not a unit. That doesn't mean that we couldn't write in here to say that yes, NARC could work. That is something that we'll take back with command and have a conversation about. Does that make
or if
sense?
intent is not to allow it, just at least specifically get in there just to remove any ambiguity again, right?
Yes. So that
Hey, Andrew, are you guys
go ahead.
Aren't you guys playing around with special ammunition?
Yeah. So we covered that a little earlier with offboard artillery, that we are going to be bringing in BSPs in a point release as soon as I can sit down and start working on those rules. Topa, letting the cat out of the bag on that one is we've been having conversations with some folks, and that has been something that I've wanted to try for a while now, is to provide alternate ammunition as a BSP. So when we get the rules written for BSPs, we will be including as a trial alternate ammunition as an option to be able to be taken in 350 when that point release comes out. So what will happen there is that, say for instance, of KSAG, we're doing Jihad era standard 350 rules, but we're going to include the optional rule of BSPs, and every player is going to get 12 BSP. Pick a number, right? That will be kind of how BSPs are included into a tournament going forward, or not, right? Will always be an optional rule to start with here until we get some really good time with them and get good feedback that does it make sense to make it be a standard rule. And we'll definitely leverage the community to make that decision after we've gotten a lot of data and feedback on how that's looking and how it's operating. So, yes.
Well, I didn't mean to let the cat out of the bag, Andrew, but
No, you're
I
fine.
was just thinking.
I was
I was
gonna address it later towards the end anyway. So that's awesome. No, we got it out, and
Well,
hopefully that'll get some people
well,
excited and keep me honest to get the damn rules written.
well, you might want to think about bunkers and semi-guided, because semi-guided relies on tag.
Yeah, it will be. It will definitely.
If special munitions, right? Yeah,
yes.
come into play.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's a good point, and those will be things that, if the battlefield support optional rule is put in, right, we may have to have disclaimers in the optional rules of, hey, in bunker scenario, if optional rule BSP is being used, these other things are taken into effect or are in consideration for that scenario. So, yeah, definitely good call out, and it'll definitely be something that we'll have to address when we get to that. The boys are playing pressure plate. Under pressure, I'm sorry.
We are playing under pressure, yes.
Yeah.
And it was already brought up. Matt goes, why does it close at the end phase? And I'm like, so we don't have to write the rule that at the end of the movement phase, the doors close unless you have weight on the pressure. So it's just easier to have all doors close at the end phase.
Yep.
And then at the end of the movement phase, if you have the correct weight or higher, then it opens again.
Yeah, that'll be an addition that we'll have to make to the under pressure. There was a comment about, does it have to be the exact combined unit size, or can it be greater? So, you guys are keeping it.
Also, indirect fire does not work on under pressure. I mean, it does, but it's not working out very well here.
All right, so that finishes up format rules. Is there anything further there on format rules that we'd like to talk about, or anybody have any questions of?
No, I don't think so. I think there's a few kind of rabbit holes thing kind of going. I'm trying to respond the best I can, but it's Corey's bringing up some stuff, Corey with a K, that honestly would be better from a verbal. Like if he was on, I'd rather talk to him with it versus, texting back and forth right through chat. So it's just logic around where NARC and C3, where one works potentially and the other doesn't, and it's rules, semantics, and kind of rabbit hole conversations at the moment.
And again, Corey, you did start the conversation.
I'm not trying to blow him off, right?
And,
it's just one of those things where, go ahead.
He did start the conversation off as he didn't want to be controversial, okay? And Corey,
which is always here. I'm going to be controversial.
Yeah, message has been received and heard. We got to talk
about it. Set the fucking tone. Set the fucking tone, guys.
Turn down the fucking tone.
With all due respect.
I don't mean to be offensive, but...
All right, so we're
I'm
going to
just
get
kidding.
into optional
Good
rules
stuff.
here for the 4x3 mat. So if anybody has had a chance to look at the book and we're paying attention, all the scenarios, all the measurements have been moved to being from center line. The reason for this is that if you are going to use a 4x3 mat, that makes sure that all the OATs are correct on a 4x3 mat. You just have a 5-inch deployment zone where 3 inches in is the back side of where the capture the flag home base sits. I hope that makes sense. Pretty easy one, but I know that we have a lot of folks that have 4x3 mats or they don't want to draw on their mats. I'm might be one of them. I just ordered 14 new 4x6 mats here the other day, so I don't know how I'm going to mark those up yet or not. So 4x3.
It in a way even allows people with 4x4 mats to even technically take advantage of this too, because you're measuring off a center line basis,
Yes,
right?
that is true
So,
too. Yeah, 100%.
yeah. That's kind of the nice part, is it becomes a little more of a universal instead of having to get special mats or cut up mats. You should be able to use what you have as from a singles perspective, right? For sure. And be a little bit flexible.
Yep, 100%. All right, so getting into terrain. Terrain was moved to more of a guideline versus a requirement as far as sizes go. We had a couple of conversations where people were kind of getting wrapped around the axle of, well, it isn't exactly this, or I don't have exactly that, and ideally those are guidelines to ensure that we have enough terrain on the table but not too much terrain. So terrain has been size-wise has been moved to guideline. We still like to see the same 10 pieces of terrain, 5 primary, 5 secondary. One rule that did change, that I think everyone will be, I hope, happy about, is everything is 2 inches from all other things at all levels now.
Random question.
Yeah.
Do buildings get partial cover?
What?
What the what the shit?
Can buildings get partial cover?
I don't see why not.
I
mean,
don't,
if they're
exactly, I don't see why they wouldn't be able to. I mean, if you see
Uh,
half the door, then the partial cover.
The building only gets partial cover if the Johnson declares partial cover.
Oh, the Big Johnson.
That Johnson laser line needs to see more than 50%. Otherwise, you get partial cover, baby.
All right, so there's 2 inches, right? So before in 2.3, the 2-inch rule only happened at ground level, right? So from oats and from other terrain features, they had to be 2 inches apart. But as soon as you went up a level, that didn't exist anymore. And there was, shenanigans that were taking place that I wasn't very happy about. And we came to an agreement as a group that I think it's better for everyone if we do 2 inches at all levels and make it be a universal rule again. So that got put in. So that is a change as far as setting terrain. Yeah. And then we get into the new formats. We've expanded the 350 rules to include doubles and to include epic, and we kind of felt that it was the right time to get those out because each one of those new format rules just builds off of what we've done with 350 so far. So really good things. I'm really glad that we got doubles defined a little bit better. And Epic is been published now. It is a beta. Going to be playing Epic next weekend with Aaron, so I'm looking forward to that. So I encourage everyone, if you got time or you feel like playing a bigger match, because Epic plays at 600 points on a 4x6. Epic has different uh, primary and secondary objectives. You're only scoring 3 points per game. This one is more, again, kind of a brainchild of Tommy, Matt, and Aaron. We need to get them on so that they can talk about it more and kind of go through what their development process and cycle was for it.
So there's a little bit in the chat. Sorry to take it back to the terrain thing, and specifically since Coach brought it up, we should also know it's pretty suspect anyway. Buildings getting partial cover. I think Bodai brought it up. It's a good iteration. Vehicles and battle armor don't get partial. Only mechs get partial cover.
That is true.
So that by that definition alone, if it's not a mech, it doesn't get partial cover.
That is a very good point. Yes.
So sorry, Coach. You don't get partial cover on you.
It didn't matter.
It didn't matter. He's dead anyway. No. And as we jump into doubles, there was a question very early on in the broadcast when we started. And I addressed it as best I could in the chat, but may want to just touch on combat groups and how we fill those out. I kind of walked through Intersphere 4, Clan 5, and this and that, but maybe just verbally bring it up, see if anything else pops up from the rest of the crew that's jumped on since then.
Oh, sure. So in doubles, right, because we're playing 500 points, we are still attempting to try and do that as a tournament format. We really need to speed up the movement phase, right? So instead of moving individual units and going back and forth, we're doing them in what we're calling a combat group. Combat groups are defined by basically the faction that you've taken, right? So if you've taken a clan faction, that combat group is 5. If you've taken an Intersphere faction, that combat group is 4, right? So you're going to take your 500 points and you're going to group them into as many groups of 4 or 5, or for Word of Blake Comstar 6. For the one era that we have, Society, you do 3s. And it will, your movement then becomes how many combat groups you have, not how many total units you have in your list. So I hope that makes sense. Address it.
Yeah, I think the only oddball is like Society, where you're going to see like 3s, and stuff like that, groups of 3. But everybody should be anything Intersphere or Merc, right? It's 4. And yeah, Clan 5, Word of Blake, Comstar 6. With some exceptions. I think there's some factions in certain eras that have variable unit sizes.
I think Raven Alliance in the later eras, they have either combat 4 or 5.
Because they're kind of in that blended, right? Clan and Intersphere. Yeah.
So in that situation, right, if you take Raven Alliance and you're playing Il Clan era and they have 4 or 5, you pick. But then you have to stick to it for your whole, all 500. Year 2.
Yeah, you can't mix. It has to be consistent.
Year 250, I'm saying I'm doing combat groups of 4, I'm doing combat groups of 5, and then you split according to what your choice is. That choice stays throughout the tournament. You don't get to switch between each game.
Let me ask this, just in case somebody maybe hasn't thought of it and it maybe comes up after the fact, is what happens when I start with mounted units where my combat groups are defined before I've mounted, but I start mounted? Do I have to modify
No.
and then regroup, or does everything kind of stay like, okay, hey, I don't only need to move 2 here and 3 here?
Correct.
Because the rest of everything is mounted, right?
Nope. That is how that works. Is
perfect.
You put, say for instance, I have 2 Maxims and 2 platoons of infantry. I'm going to make that be a combat group of 4. When I deploy, I'm going to deploy the Maxims, and then I'm going to say I'm going to deploy the platoons in the Maxims. That combat group is still those 4 units, but when it's their turn to move, I'm only moving those 2 because the infantry are choosing to stay mounted, right? That's their move.
It also goes along with, like, you're going to keep that group together throughout the whole course of the game. So if you set if you have 4 transports, each carrying 1 infantry, you can have the 4 transports be a combat group and the 4 infantry, but you're moving them all at the same time. And then even if 1 or 2 dies, you still maintain that same combat group minus those units. It's now
Yeah,
just
as long
a
as
smaller
one
combat.
unit, right? As long as one unit in that group stays intact, that group is still intact.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
If I'm playing clan and I have 2 stars, so I have 10 mechs on the table, and I get down to just 1 from each group, I still have 2 combat groups. It's not once you get down to 5, you don't go to 1.
Yeah, you don't
2
reorg
combat
as you
groups stay
go.
the same.
Right.
Yep. You guys got it. Bodai, our combat groups functionally different from Lance Star movement as defined in 33 of ACE? No, that's exactly what we're trying to get to, but we are holding people accountable to what that how do they get to Lance Star based on the faction that they chose. I hope that makes sense. And I saw some you guys, throwing some shit at each other in the chat over here about Epic at KSAG. KSAG's supposed to be fun. You guys want Epic played at KSAG? We will have Epic at KSAG. So,
Oh, fuck you, Bovie. Fuck you. You heard it from the man.
I don't know
Not
where
just
the
in
heck he's
my
going to
hotel
put it.
room. Not just in my hotel room. It's gonna be everywhere.
I would love to play Epic. Epic is a blast. I have played Epic. It's super fun. I watched it played at KSAG last year. There is nothing wrong with it. The trouble is that room is limited, and if we have 200 people playing games in that room, I don't know how you're going to have 2 people at one table. So it's a phenomenal game. I would love to see it there. I'd love to have a whole bunch of it there, but
that
if
is
it's
fair.
not
Sounds like
on
a challenge.
Thursday,
Sounds
if
like
it's
a
not on
challenge.
Thursday and it's not on Sunday, I don't know when you're going to have it.
That is fair.
That is fair.
You're gonna have to rotate.
Yeah.
Rotate.
All right. Well, we'll see. You got to sign up. If you're going to run something, you better sign up. Get on the sign up sheet or you're SOL.
Well, and then to Bobby's point, right? It really will determine what will determine all of that is how many tickets do we sell, right?
Yeah.
If we sell 100 tickets, we're going to have space and it'll be awesome. If we sell 200 tickets, we won't have space.
We'll have to make choices.
I
We'll
don't
have
know
to make choices.
I don't know what the fuck we're going to do. We're going to have a lot of fun. I know that, but
Plus,
The common term for tonight is manage disappointment.
manage disappointment. There we go.
plus, Matt will be far too busy teaching demos of the BattleTech Classic card game the entire weekend to run any Epic. So I'm sorry, that's just what he's going to have to do.
Yeah, Matt, you and Tommy got voluntold. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, he's coming around the table.
Uh-oh.
I'll put this eloquently. If you want the best and you volunteer us, that's fine. But don't forget your damn grasshopper this time in case
Oh my God! It's almost
Wow.
been 6 months at least. Oh,
Just let it go. Like Elsa said, let it go, you bitches.
I want a T-shirt made. That's not where I parked my grasshopper.
Anybody seen my keys?
Dude, where's my grasshopper?
Where's my grasshopper?
Where's my grass?
All right. So, yeah, we're hoping to. I mean, we can. Is there any other questions that we have about 3.0? Anything else that we want to cover, discuss, ruminate, argue?
One thing that came up, and I thought I quelled it with, "Hey, that's experimental. That shit don't fly." Is guess who brought it up? Corey with a K. I don't mean to disrupt. Quad Vs. So depending on which mode they're in, if only mechs get partial, how do you determine when a Quad V gets partial? What mode they're in?
I do
Because
believe
Quad Vs are advanced, not experimental.
I do believe that Quad Vs are discussed in Commander's Edition, and that
Okay.
they are always considered. This is page 178. I will
Oh.
pull the book up here in a minute as soon as I get to the page.
I
But
got the
I
PDF.
do
We are heading to page
believe-
178, you said?
Combat phase quad V's. Here we go. So let's let me
Mhm.
go back to here and let's toggle this off and toggle this on.
Special to the identity itself.
So we
to
can
a
go
lamb.
here. Unit.
So while he's looking this up, I will point out, Bodai, if you want to get involved, you're going to want to email andrew@wolfsdragoons.com. And if you have any complaints, you're going to want to send them to
Valhalla Club.
Valhalla Club at gmail.com.
Oh, shit.
And put in the subject line, attention bourbon.
Oh, it says on. So, Andrew, I think I got ahead of you. If in under quad V's, combat phase. So, in the second column, on the right hand column, there's combat phase and line of sight. Attacks against quad V's use the line of sight or practical line of sight rules appropriate to their current mode of operation. So, they'll only get partial if they're in their mech mode.
So, but this is interesting, right? So, if you continue to read that, though, right? So, line of
Mhm.
sight. Attacks against quad V's use their LOS, or practical line of sight, rules appropriate to the current mode of operation. Quad V's in mech mode are considered battle mechs of standard height or for targeting purposes, while quad V's in vehicle mode determine their LOS if they stand only as tall as a vehicle, half the height of a mech. That
So they still count as a mech,
yes,
but only get level 1. So technically,
They can
partial would still
partial-
apply,
partial would
but they're
still-
only at level 1. Ooh.
that's how I'm reading and interpreting that as well.
That sounds like a Kestrel question
Yeah,
now. At this
yeah.
point, right? We need some quant. Because does their unit type change based on mode, or are they always a mech just at different heights now? That's what I read is, right?
Jonathan in the chat says, on the third paragraph under quad V's, it says they are always counted as mechs.
Where's that at? Oh, quad V's are considered battle mechs regardless of the current mode. Oh, look at that. Some bitch. Thanks, Jonathan.
I knew that
Sorted
was in
it
here.
out.
That's what I was trying to find. I knew that was here because we had
Somewhere
had
in
this,
there.
We had this conversation here a couple of days ago. So, thank you,
Okay.
Jonathan.
Yep.
There you go.
So quad V's always get partial, but their height is determined by their mode.
There you go. Does that answer the question of whoever was?
I hope so. It's Corey Johnston. So who gives a shit?
If you answered his question, you created 7 more.
That's fair.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. He's just gonna find 6 other ways to fuck you over now in the rules. So that guy, I tell you.
Hey, hey, that's good, right? Keeps us on our toes. I like it.
That's right. We're solving problems before they're problems in the tournament. At least that's what we're saying.
So we're trying.
Yeah, we're trying.
We're trying. All right. Again, closing out 3.0 discussion. Do we have any other questions? Did we address stuff? How mad did we make everybody? Are you still going to come to Gen Con? I mean, hopefully that's all, still good and you still want to come and enjoy, each other and rolling dice. But, that's what we're after, right? Make sure that we have a good time and when we get together. So, well, now Jonathan's backtracking. We'll see.
No, fuck that. They're getting partial.
They get partial.
Fuck you. They're getting partial.
They are treated as a mech, and it does not
as
matter.
long as they're always considered mechs.
Yeah.
Fucking Tommy. God damn it.
Can we talk about base sizes?
No, we're not talking about base sizes. So for
32 millimeters.
For those of you who are new to the channel or new to the format, we had a conversation, I think, lasted a week about base sizes and what constitutes a standard base size with multiple pictures with multiple bases with multiple sizes. It was. I don't ever want to fucking talk about bases again.
What one thing, because you know how I love to sometimes, piss in Cheerios with airplane fuel. The 25th anniversary introductory box set. If you remember those, the
have-
hex spaces in those are amalgam. They are.
They're
Whoever
half.
made those needs to be shot.
They were
right?
1 inch.
I think
They
we.
were 1 inch from flat to flat, front to back, and then 1.25 inches in the.
Yes.
Yeah, it was horrific.
So, based on your rules, I can use those, but they have inappropriate hex space sizes. What do I do with those units if I want to
You
run
want
them?
to know what? I have a bag of 3D printed bases that they can slide into that make them be 1.25 inches.
Oh my god! I know, it's that one goofy thing when you brought up hex spaces size because it just came up recently. Like, well, how do I use these? I said, well, if you run classic, it doesn't matter, right? A hex
map-
shaped thing works,
The map takes
but
care
when
of
you
it.
run alpha,
Yeah.
yeah, right, the max. But yeah, I said that's that one kind of weird exception. I was like, I don't know why they did it. I have no clue why they did it.
Saved on
But
plastic, man. It's saved on plastic.
yeah, that whole 0.00006 cents. But yeah, sorry.
I had to mount my Great Turtle special on a base just so it would apply to the standard rules. So, yeah, you have to follow up with what works. I mean,
Yeah,
it just ends up being part of it.
legal and reasonable.
Uh-oh, something happened with the boys.
Oh,
Aaron's walking
one's
it off.
pointing, the other one's arms up. Uh-oh,
Uh-oh.
somebody not happy.
He had to hit sixes and he missed with 2 out of the 3, but he had a cocked dice and he hit the table and it went to 2. So he pulled him out to re-roll him and he rolled another 2.
Fun
Oof.
times. Fun times. Mr. Corey with a C, Mr. Held, 100%. That's why I put the J27 Killjoys in as an example for trailer hitch. Anyway, so we've got Gen Con coming up. Gen Con, we're doing the heats, and I'll throw out an apology. I thought that we had that all set up so that you could roll from doubles into singles. We've got time built into those time frames for doubles that we should get done in time for you to be able to play in singles. The TOs that are going to be doing singles and doubles will be the same. So if you are playing in doubles and you want to play in singles that night, first off, more power to you. That's a long day.
God bless you.
We can try and do everything we can to make sure that happens. So, when is the Epic tournament? So that is something that Epic is going to be very hard to get accomplished at a major convention because space is always at a premium. We are always fighting for more table space. We are always trying to get more, and it just doesn't work out, right? So if we were going to do an Epic tournament, it will have to be something that we do just like, a random 350 tournament in June. If we get enough people that are interested in wanting to do an Epic tournament, I have no problem setting that up and running one. Just need to know, do we have enough interest? Is it worth our time? And then we can get it set up and do it. So 100%. So we have Gen Con coming up. After that, we've got Desert Hot Drop. That is in Vegas. I think it's September 26th, 7th, and 8th. That's being run by the West Coast group in response to difficulties that we have trying to get into LVO. they decided that they wanted to have a West Coast meetup, and I was so thankful that they called to ask me if I'd come out and help do that. So I'm really looking forward to supporting them, however that I can. Um, I know we've got a couple of guys here from Minneapolis going, so if you're free, and it's a Vegas trip, so it's pretty cheap. It's at the La Quinta Inn at the airport, so you won't even need a car. They have a shuttle. You get there, and you're rolling dice the whole time you're there. So, um, encourage you to look at that. And then I think Topa left already. I know Michigan GT is coming up. Stone, I think you can talk to that.
Yeah, we've got a few things going on. There's a mix of classic and Alpha Strike going on. There's a classic narrative campaign. There's also an Alpha Strike doubles tournament. There's another gentleman that runs a different Alpha Strike. They call it Alpha Strike Open tournament format, run by Mr. Bill Kim, who's played in some AS350 games. So, and that one has honestly been kind of grown here locally, and it's a fun one. So if you're in town, definitely check that one out. And then we have a Drafted for War on Sundays. And just kind of throwing the gauntlet out, we've run that 2 years in a row, the Drafted for War on Sunday. This year will be the third year. Not to brag, not that my head isn't already too big to fit through many doors and windows. I've won that 2 years in a row. And Mr. Tim Croft, who runs that Drafted for War, is offering multiple force packs bounty for anybody who unseats the King Goober at Drafted for War. So just a challenge. Come out, but you better cook them dice on a griddle because you're going to need it. Because Daddy's been hot. Daddy's hot. I'm just saying. Drafted for War, reigning champion.
Not to brag, though.
Not to
brag. It's not about me. It's not about me, ladies and gentlemen. It's about the community. But overall, GT's been great. It is under new ownership this year. They're looking to grow and grow. There's a chance that we're actually going to bring our BattleTech pods to GT this year. Not guaranteed, but it's in the works. So hopefully we have lots of BattleTech fun there, and hope to see you guys there.
That's fantastic. And then we'll close out the night and we'll talk about KSAG. So we'll have KSAG 6 coming up this year. We are going to be holding that December 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th here in Minneapolis. We've got a hotel set aside to be the venue and for a hotel block. So it's a little bit of a trip from the airport, no different than what we had last year. But thank you, Phil. September hot drop is September 19th through the 21st. Shit, I better check my flight and make sure that I did the right dates. Anyway, KSAG will be December 4th through the 7th here in Minneapolis. We had a fantastic turnout last year. We are going to do everything we possibly can to replicate that same good time again this year. The two individuals that we have on stream, and the 4 that we have here, everyone will be there. We're looking for events. If you want to come and you got a great idea and you want to run something, as Bovey said, reach out to me, Andrew at wolfstragoons.com. I'd love to hear from you so that we can have a good group, good plethora of events. What?
Is it just me, or does Andrew look like the master, shrouded in darkness, and can only see half his face? And you going wobbly on me, or what's going on here?
Ooh,
he's prepping for KSAG.
I'm working my way up, man. KSAG's jihad, so
yeah, jihadder in training, right?
Man, I tell you what,
You need a white bathrobe.
Craig is gonna come full on. Have you heard what Craig is doing? I think he's donating money to the food bank for every army that comes to play in singles that's Word of Blake or Comstar.
If he hasn't lined up a bunch of people to just walk through KSAG in white robes with the Book of Jerome or the Book of Blake, and then just, Blake, and smack each other on the head.
Don't give
All
him
that's
ideas.
all that's scheduled for Sunday morning of KSAG is a church service for Word of Blake.
Everyone will get a toaster. You can bless the toaster and pray over it. That'd be awesome. Anyway, yeah, we are. I think Goober stated it. Our goal is try and get 200 people. Um, if we can get that, that'll be awesome. It'll be scary, but it'll be awesome. Last year was a lot of fun, and we got through that, so we'll figure it out. As Goober said, the whole show has been about managing disappointment. So that'll be on full tilt.
I mean, right now we have 23 events scheduled from 350 to 350 doubles to some Alpha Strike narrative games to some classic tournaments, a blood right competition, all the things you would expect. Also, quite a bit of classic narrative games, a dropship scenario. I mean, there's quite a bit. Andrew and I are going to be running BattleTech trivia Friday night. It should be a full-on immersive BattleTech event. Whether you're an Alpha Strike player, a classic player, you like both, if you like those games, you should be able to play quite a bit of what you want to run throughout that whole weekend.
I'm already knowing that the feedback that we're going to get is going to be even more than what we had at first KSAG. Is I didn't get to do everything that I wanted because we are going to have a lot of really cool stuff, but decisions are going to have to be made, and maybe that'll encourage you to come back next year and do the things that you didn't get to do. So, yes, Kyle, yes, Mr. Doyle, no heats will be run at KSAG. We will do a one-day tournament, and people will just have to make choices. So that's what we're leaning towards right now. So, I think that we've had almost 2 hours. So
the competition for the belt will be fierce.
Oh yes,
but the competition to kiss the ring might be even fiercer.
So Bovie has gone above and beyond. Not only do we have a WWE style 350 singles trophy that you get to take home and have for the year, but this year he broke out that we have Super Bowl style doubles rings for those that win the doubles tournament that are pretty awesome. I got to put one on when we were there last weekend, and I almost didn't put it back in the box. They're freaking awesome. So I'm really looking forward to seeing people's faces when they get to put those on. I hope they wear them all weekend.
One question that came up in the chat was, when will the event list go live for KSAG?
So that is that's the $100 million question. So it's to be honest with you guys, it's difficult, right? Because we don't necessarily know how many tickets we're going to sell. So we don't know how many events we need. So we're working very, very hard with the local play group here, who's an amazing group of people that this thing wouldn't happen without them. We have people who are flying in who are stepping up. Company, Mr. Jeff Stone is planning on running a couple of different things for us as well. Bovie is booked all weekend with stuff. We've got people from Grand Forks that are coming down to help. It's truly amazing how much effort goes into getting something like this to go and have enough stuff and to have people be excited and fulfilled throughout the weekend. So when will it go live? I don't want to throw a date out because I don't want to be told I was a liar, but we are working hard on getting an event list put together. And we'll continue to get that together. Go ahead.
I would jump in and say I would anticipate we will see tickets go live hopefully sometime around the 1st of July. So you'll be able to buy your tickets sometime around then. A final event list, or even and we may have a survey in between. We may have a few things to try to get a feel for what people want to play so that we can put that together. I mean, we want people to come and have a good time and get to play the games they want. And you, as Andrew alluded to earlier, you won't get to play everything. You're going to have to pick and choose, just like you do at Gen Con, just like you do at Adepticon. But we want you to be able to play the bulk of what you want to play. So I would say if we do get tickets for sale by July 1st, we would have an event list out hopefully by August 1st or sometime around then. But again, it's going to depend on ticket sales. It's going to depend on how people want to do things. To answer Corey's question, when is the deadline for hotel reservations? The day you buy your tickets. It's a pretty good size hotel. I don't think they're going to run out of rooms, even if all 200 people that come take up their own room. But no, I think it's going to be great. But yeah, we will adapt events to the number of players and the people who want to play them.
Jonathan, I want to do everything, and telling him he can't is just rude. Well, we're just trying to set expectations, buddy. It's going to be a fun-filled and action-packed weekend that choices are going to have to be made. The nice thing, or the thing that we will continue to try and do always with KSAG is I firmly believe that just buying your event badge is enough. Um, we want to provide all the events free of charge as much as possible, depending upon logistics and what kind of prize support that we can get. For Drafted for War, Iron Painter, some things might have a $10, $20 extra charge that just to offset what it is that we're doing, but that will be in the event when they go live. So
Yeah, that'll be more few and far in between, but it's more like stuff that's going to have kind of drafted mentalities to it, right? Where you're getting product out of it versus just participation, right? From an extra charge standpoint that you were going at. Sorry.
We also tried really hard to reach out to Freddie Prince Jr. to try to get him to come to KSAG, but since he is not available, we will have Aaron.
that is a sad.
That's pretty close. That's pretty close.
You know what would really send us over the top? I think goal for next year is we got to bring in Duncan Fisher for commentating on live streams.
I'm pretty famous, guys.
Jesus.
He's like the second most popular person in Iowa.
Second most. I do know that there is some talk amongst the upper echelons. I'm not going to promise that we're going to have people here, but there are people planning on being here this year, so I'm excited for that. We even have potentially a couple CSO artists attending that may run some painting classes for us. So be on the lookout for that, and we'll definitely let everybody know when that happens, as I have a feeling those will be very hot items.
Yeah, those will sell out quick, I'm sure.
All right. Well, with that, I think we should perhaps close this down. I want to thank everyone who joined the chat. This has been a lot of fun. Let us know if this was enjoyable for you guys. Is this something that you would like to have more of? With the on screen here with Jeff and Tom, be more than happy to have a couple of you folks that if you're Patreon members or something like that, be happy to have you on stream and get your semi beautiful face on presented to the world. So we're not setting the bar very high, so if anybody wants to join, let me know. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think there's been a couple comments of actually asking about what frequency about kind of rules conversations would be. So I think there's definitely some um, excitement for it, right? You know, the ability to interact, chat a bit about it, and potentially, influence future ideas and stuff like that. I think that's part of maintaining and inviting some of that good positive feedback, right? That we're looking at. So maybe that's something we do kind of maybe even like a quarterly thing or after major events. Hey, here's some of the feedback. Let's talk about what we heard,
Boat
right? Things like
to
that. Yeah.
Bodai, we typically release at least every 6 months a point release or
Yeah,
something
semi-annually ish.
semi-annually ish. Um, I I know 2.3 lasted for quite a while because it was pretty solid, but yeah, I think every 6 months, I think you could probably plan on having a new release come out. Definitely, I could probably say early next year we'll have a new release based on all the rule changes that we've just introduced and feedback from the four major events that we've just talked about. We'll get good feedback on that, and we'll be able to make further decisions that are right for the community and for what we're doing. So, um, did you all like this format? I know this is a little different than Thursday night streaming. I know I'm working hard on getting a table set up so that I can do streaming here either Thursday night or even another night during the week. But is a forum like this, was this enjoyable? Did you get anything out of this? Is this something you guys would like to see more of? Definitely let us know either here or in Discord. Um, this is easy to do, so if we can do more, we can definitely do that. Anybody else?
To Mike in the chat, I just want to say, and I say this with pain in my heart and sorrow in my eyes, that I too will desperately miss the flatbed truck. After the discussion at KSAG last year, I sent Aaron and Andrew a meme of a flatbed truck doing a wheelie and said, when flatbed trucks survive but skimmers get knocked out. And now the flip side has actually happened. So I'm with you all the way. Like, it's a travesty. I will be running one at Skill 2 just so I could say I did. But yeah, it's definitely painful. I actually even made a mini that's doing a wheelie of a flatbed truck. So it's very, very disappointing.
All right, with that, Stone, Bovi, do you have anything final words to leave the amazing group with, and we can sign off and tell the boys.
No, other than hey, hopefully we see some of you guys, at the tables, and we look forward to feedback discussions going forward, and appreciate the time and everybody kind of showing up. But continue the conversation in Discord and obviously in person when we're at tournaments, and look forward to it, at least from my end. Appreciate it.
Tom?
I'm just looking forward to seeing everybody. I'm planning to be out at Gen Con as of right now, barring anything crazy happening, and super excited to get everybody here for KSAG. And
Anything crazy?
again, the second most famous person.
Nothing's crazy happened in your life recently.
Not for 2 more weeks. Not for 2 more weeks. So we're pretty good there. At least that's the plan. So, no, just excited to see everybody and get together and roll some dice and have a good time. The new scenarios are fun. Hopefully, we have a couple more. I know I don't want to say anything, but Andrew and I play tested one that I've kind of been working on that needs a little work, but it's kind of fun. So we'll try that out. But yeah, thanks for jumping in. Thanks for watching, and it was a good night.
Hey, Iowa boys, do you have anything to say before we sign off? Of course you do.
I am almost winning this game, but I'm not going to. It's a Shogun versus 2 very bad-looking tanks, and my trusty VTOL.
And it's 2-0.
It's 2-0. I'm gonna lose 2-1, but Other than that, set the fucking tone.
Hey,
All right. Final from me again. Thank you everyone for joining. Hopefully this was enjoyable. If you liked it, let us know. We can do more of it. Warriors of Wolfnet, you guys have a great evening and a great weekend. Remember, next weekend is Father's Day, so hug and kiss your dad.
Also, just quick note. I'm moving locations, so Thursday night throwdown is going to be in limbo a little bit longer, but I am hoping July. So we'll have new digs, and I'm going to spice it up a little bit. So hopefully Thursday or Thursday, fucking July.
And I'm going to be getting mine set up here too. So, all right, with that, everyone, good night, and you all have a good evening. Thank you.
good night, everyone.